Just when I thought all the Nico stuff was far behind us, no, I was wrong. Because via an ESPN article, Nico spoke out and didn't mention Tennessee directly, but we can read between the lines and see some things he says that's definitely pointed towards the Volunteers. And Nico has honestly been relatively quiet since his exit, and I don't think that should necessarily surprise anybody. That's just the kind of kid he is. We all know he was cool, calm, collected, never got too high, never got too low, and so it didn't surprise me that he's not around Southern California just slandering everything that has to do with orange and white. But still, it drew me off sides a little bit when I saw this. I think you'll probably feel the same way. Just a little bit of a refresher from that fateful weekend in April. The 10th rolled around, reports emerged that there might be some dissension between Nico and the Volunteers coaching staff. I'll never forget it. Was sitting at work. One of my coworkers saw the tweet, sent it to me, and I was like, don't worry about it. It's probably nothing big. And then the next day, the night after he was at Joey Halsley's house with the rest of the quarterbacks, he was absent from practice. Then the day after that, Heupel announces that they move on from Nico as a team, and then 8 days later, he's in the transfer portal and commits to UCLA. Let's get to what he had to say, though. He said, I think for me, going back home was always in the back of my head. When the false narratives about money started coming out, whatever school it was, that was my driving factor. And I'm not going to lie, it's kind of comical to me that he threw in the whatever school it was. And I get it. There's some SID at UCLA that looked him in the eyes and say, hey, whatever you do over the next 2 years, you cannot utter the words Tennessee. But to just throw out whatever school it was is actually hilarious. And then also the statement, if we take it at face value, and if we look at it a little bit deeper, it's unequivocally false. It's just not true. To say that you didn't, weren't driven by money at all, then why did you ask for more money before you left if that wasn't a driving factor? And then they said no, and then obviously you leave. And I get it. He got a lot of bad advice from some adults that were around him. That's not 100% his fault. But still, for him to say that money wasn't a driving factor, that's just not true. What is true is we're going to be here for you all season long on Tennessee Football Talk. So make sure you subscribe because we're in the midst of a Week 1 sub-battle with the Alabama Football Report, Ohio State Football Report, and Michigan Football Report. All the college football channels right here at Chat Sports. Tennessee's moved up from 3rd to 2nd. Still very close to 1st, though. Okay, Alabama only leads us only by 3 subs. If you haven't joined us yet, right now is the perfect time to do so. Hit that big red free sub button for daily coverage. And you want to know how I know that money was a driving factor? That was a lie when he just said, it wasn't? Because we know that he asked for some more in December. How do we know that? Well, Josh Pate, who is probably the most connected man in college football right now, he said so himself in late April. This stuff was happening last December during the playoffs, with this kid included. But not just this kid. They were trying to get more money from Tennessee and other playoff teams before the playoffs. They were trying to leverage playoff participation. So there you have it. We know that this was something that was happening back in December. So it happened in December, it happened in April, and now he's here trying to tell us, trying to make us believe that money wasn't a driving factor. Look, he's a great talent. I'm never going to tell you he has no arm strength. I'm never going to tell you he can't spin the football better than most people in this country. But I'm happy he's gone, right? He's the quintessential 7-on-7 quarterback. And there's a lot different from playing quarterback in the SEC and just being a great talent. Those two aren't often the same. They're not always the same. They can be, but just because you're a great talent doesn't mean you're a great quarterback. Just because you could throw the ball well doesn't mean you're a great quarterback. There's so much more that comes into that. What I mean by being a great 7-on-7 quarterback is he can make pretty much every throw on the field. We know that. But the second that he feels any amount of pressure from a 300-pound Alabama defensive tackle across the line, he's a panicker. So he's much better in situations where he's playing 7-on-7, where he's got all the time in the world to throw without somebody running in his face. And, of course, he's got the pajamas on as well. Nico, my last kind of sentiment to you is the Bama win was awesome. Appreciate that. The run to the playoffs was awesome. Appreciate that. You did what you did. Now you got to live with it. So go have fun playing in front of 4,000 Bruin fans. And that's kind of your fate as of right now. So there's a reason they have to cover up a fourth of their stadium because they can't sell it out. Next, Artie, let's hear from the head coach of the UCLA Bruins. Because it wasn't just Nico that had something to say about his Tennessee situation. No. The head coach had to talk about it as well. Deshaun Foster said the following. His situation is the exact same as everybody else. He got in the portal, found a school, and he's at a new school. He hasn't had any off-the-field issues. He didn't get kicked out of Tennessee. He didn't do anything. And I get what he's saying. And I would probably agree with a lot of the statement before he dropped that last, 4-word sentence. He didn't do anything. That's where I disagree. To say that Nico and his camp didn't do anything is just wrong. It's just not true, okay? Because the way that Big Nick and Nico handled that entire situation was wrong. He got a lot of bad advice, and that ultimately led him to where he is now. Honestly, at this point, I'm already here, but hearing this stuff makes me even more feel this way. I'm just ready for the Joey football era to begin in Knoxville. I'm ready for this team to run through the power T and have this guy lead them at the quarterback position, okay? Because although I know that Nico is a better pure passer, has better traits, probably a higher ceiling than Joey does, there was a lot in Nico's game that I didn't like that Joey doesn't possess. And the main part was, like I said, the panicking. This is a perfect example of it in the playoff game against Ohio State. He looks to his first read, not there. Instead of going to his second and then third progressions, what does he do? He freaks out, he panics, and he turns his full body forward. And look at that pocket. That's a relatively clean pocket. This is just kind of what he does. It's kind of what we got used to. And I think that Joey Aguilar, the fact that he's played 47 games in college in the last 4 years, that's going to help him out a ton in standing out and being different than Nico was. Does Joey beat his 19 touchdowns this next season? Let me know in the comment section down below by giving me a yes or a no. Obviously, yes, if you think he's throwing 20. No, if you think he's throwing 19 or less. Before we get out of here, I just got to talk about something I saw on social media today that absolutely fired me up, okay? Lance Hurd spoke to the media, spoke at a press conference. He was asked, what does Tennessee have on its young offensive line? He answered, we got violence. Turn me up, Lance. That just fires me up so much. There is nothing I love more than a violent offensive line. I know we don't like to talk about Alabama football players on this channel, but do you remember Tyler Booker's famous answer from his combine interview about his favorite thing about football? He said, watching the love of the game disappear from the eyes of his opponent across from him as the game went on. That's pretty sick. And that violence gives me those same vibes, or that answer, I should say. So much of this season rests on the offensive line's shoulders. So much of it. And I know that's true for pretty much every football season. So much of these games are won in the line of scrimmage. But you got to think about the weapons on this team offensively. They need the help of the offensive line a little bit more than last year. There's no Dylan Sampson on this team. I still think this running back room is going to have a lot of success. I think you got 3 guys that are really good when it comes to running the football. You don't have an SEC Player of the Year on this roster, though. So you need the offensive line to help them out a lot more than you did last year. For the wide receiver room, you're only returning 26% of the yards from last season to this one. Only one player in the 2 deep has played more than 2 years of college football. So guess who needs time for these guys to get open, these guys to make plays? The quarterback. Guess who gives them that time? The offensive line. Okay, they are massive. They are imperative in the success of this team in 2024. And I think it's a pretty good unit. There's a lot of question marks on it? Of course, there are. Lance Hurd had an up-and-down season last year. Played some games really great, but then he had games like the Arkansas game where he didn't look so great. Wendell Moe, transfer. Sam Pendleton, transfer. Jesse Perry, really young guy, but he was one of those guys that Josh Heupel mentioned as a possible breakout player in Austin Price's interview with him yesterday. And then David Sanders, you got a true freshman at right tackle. I think this unit has the ability to be really good. They're just unproven right now. But if they're a unit, like Lance Hurd says, that has violence, sign me up. Which position group for Tennessee do you think is the weakest in this next season? Let me know in the comment section down below. My gut wants to tell me the wide receiver room. I don't hate them. I think they could be really good. I just think they're the most unproven as of right now. But you let me know down below. Make sure you got me on social media. You can find me on Twitter and on Instagram at Joey Petersen on both of those platforms. More than anything, though, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. YouTube.com/VolsTalk. You're at the best place for daily news on your Tennessee Vols.